Hi, Jess here from The Intelligent Hypnotist, and today I'd like to share with you one of my absolute favorite hypnotic techniques. In fact, I use this pattern with almost every client who comes to see me, and this is called the Future Self Deep Trance Identification, or the Future Self DTI. And this is a powerful way that you can ensure success not only in the session with your client, but that your client continues to have success over the next month, the next year, the next 5 years. And the idea of this pattern is that what we're going to do is create a strong mental and emotional representation of who the client is going to be long after they have the change. And we're going to place that right in the client's future. And what this is going to do is it's going to act as a strange attractor, meaning once we install this vision of who they want to become, it actually pulls them along the path of transformation. Not just in your office, but in subsequent sessions and outside in the real world, so that every step that they're taking, everything that they're doing is moving them towards that idealized version of who they'd like to become. And the steps of this are really easy, so I'm going to go through the steps and then we'll do a little bit of a demo of it so you can have an experience of it from the inside out. Now, the working parts can be divided into small sections. The first is how do we actually initialize the DTI? And we're going to do this by first inviting the client to imagine themselves so far into the future that when they are this person looking back at now, they can barely even remember having an issue. And if you're paying close enough attention, you'll pick up on a very interesting presupposition layered into that language. Once they have a visual representation, we're going to build that up a little bit. We're going to invite the client to notice what the future self looks like, the expression on their face, their posture, how the future self is breathing, what they're wearing, how they're behaving. The next part of this is going to be the actual DTI portion. And we're going to invite the client to step outside of themselves as a consciousness so they can see their current self. So for example, right now it's 2016. You can see 2016 you, and you can see 2017 you, or 2020 you, whatever the case may be. So this is in terms of perceptual positions for the NLPers out there. This is third position. From there, the consciousness is going to associate into the future self. And now here's the fun part, because we're going to build such an awesomely powerful positive state for the client that they cannot help but be attracted to this version of themselves. We're going to do that first by inviting them to take on the physiology of the future self, remembering that the quickest way to change any state is to change physiology. So the breathing, the posture, the positioning of the shoulders, and so on. The next step of this is going to integrate something called the Tree of Life, which is Sean's coaching model, and it's a coaching model that I happen to be working from most of the time, and it's comprised of 10 points. The real world, which we covered in the posture and breathing. The next step up is the map of the world, or the client's model of the world, and this is the meaning that they're making out of their sensory experience. This includes complex equivalences. This means that. This is also cause and effect. I see this and I behave that way. So we're going to get the new map of the world, the new way the client is interpreting the sensory experience. The next step up is going to be the thoughts, the internal representations that this future self has. Then the emotions, the feelings. From there, the rules and the modals. What must be true for this future you? What can be true for this future you? What must be true about the world around you? What are the shoulds and the musts? What are the cans that create your experience? Because next we have the values. And in this moment, when you fully step into the future you, what is most important to you about this? What's most significant about the experience, about who you are? The next point after that, we're getting close to the top of the tree, is the archetype. Who are you truly being as a person? And most clients, their typical response is going to be, I'm being me. And they're absolutely right. You are being you to your fullest potential in that moment. Above that, we have everything else that you may not have been aware of that can contribute to creating this fulfilling life. So what is everything else that you can consider now that you hadn't thought of before that allows you to be more of who you are? And then finally, we have the top point of the tree. And this is the idea of what's the next step? Where can this take you? Where will this take you? So we're future pacing them even beyond the future self DTI. So just to recap so far, we have the initialization by introducing the future self to the current self. Then we have the perceptual position shift, stepping outside of ourselves and seeing both the current self and future self, and then stepping into future self. After that, we build up the experience by building up their tree of life through their physiology and breathing, their map of the world, their thoughts, their emotions, their rules, their values, their archetypes, their point of wisdom, and then where will this lead? And now, as I mentioned, we're going to be creating a strange attractor that's going to be pulling the 2016 or the present day client, whenever you happen to be watching this, through the change and into that future self. And the way we do this is when they're fully in the future self, fully embodying all of those great qualities, they're going to look back at the present self, the 2016 self, and see that version of them already changing. They're already taking the steps to become this. And we know they are because they're in your office. So they're already taking the steps. So we invite this position to notice the present day self moving closer and closer. Now we're going to invite the client to step out of the future self and move into something called fourth position. This is the space in between future self and present self, and feel the connection between the two. Sense the connection between the two. A really lovely metaphor for this is the fact that there is no such thing as empty space. Scientists used to think that space was a void, but it's actually not. We know that it is filled with tiny particles. So the space between future self and present self isn't actually empty. It's filled with molecules, atoms, atomic particles, and so on. So we step in the fourth position to have this experience of the connection of the two. Then finally stepping into the present day self, looking at the future self and feeling the self being pulled in that direction. And there you have it. That's the pattern. Typically, this pattern is done at the very beginning of the coaching process. Once we get all the goals and what they want to work through and what they want to achieve, before we do any other type of hypnotic intervention, I like to do this first because it pre-frames the change. It tells the unconscious mind exactly where to pull the client to. So I thought it would be really fun to give you a brief experience of this. And I'm going to have to put the disclaimer out there that this might be slightly hypnotic, which means if you're driving or operating machinery or doing anything else where you can't give this your fullest attention now, just pause it for now and come back later when you can. And for those of you who are ready to dive in, make yourselves comfortable. Okay, great. So what I'd like for you to do is to go ahead and think of something that you'd like to achieve or something you'd like to change. Think about, it could be a goal that you're ready to accomplish. It could be some issue you'd like to overcome. Maybe feeling something you don't want to feel, or behaving in a less than resourceful way, or wanting to feel more of something or do more of something. And when you have that in mind, and chances are that you've probably thought about this in the past, so it's going to be a little familiar for you. When you're ready, go ahead and close your eyes. And just take a few moments to center yourself, to notice your breathing, how it feels to be sitting where you are. And I know that if you're sharing this space with me now, that you're an excellent hypnotist, which means you are a wonderful hypnotic subject. And you could find just the right way for you to go into trance. And I'm not sure exactly what that is for you. It could be noticing any type of shift in your breathing. It could be finding a point of relaxation and comfort. Some people like to go into trance by noticing the outline of your body, bringing your awareness to the edges of you, resting comfortably in space. Perhaps you have another way to go into trance that's right for you. But as you begin to alter your state in just the right way, to have this experience, you could notice any shifts in your sensory awareness as you take some time to step inside. Because I'd like for you to call to mind a version of you who has achieved this change and is so far into the future that they barely even remember not having the change. And I don't know if it's a 2017 you or a 2018 you, a 2020 you. So for now, I'll just refer to it as the future you. And as you see future you standing there, having achieved the change, having accomplished the goal, just be aware of any type of facial expression. Perhaps they're happy to see you. You might notice how they're breathing, their posture, and anything else about their physiology that lets current you know that they have achieved this and they've practiced it for a long time. Because when you're ready, you can step outside of yourself as a consciousness. So there's 2016 you, and there's future you. Because when you're ready, you can drift into future you, looking back at 2016 self. And you can allow your physiology to change in any way that's appropriate, taking on the posture, noticing the edges of this body and how it feels to have accomplished so many wonderful things. Because you could be aware of your map of the world. And I'm curious, why have you accomplished this? What caused you to be this way? You being this way now, what does it mean for your future? Even beyond future you. Because you could be aware of the thoughts that you have. And it's not really important what the content is. It might just be more curious to notice how you're thinking. Are you thinking in pictures, in words, or some other way? Are you thinking about all of the memories that led you to this point, or all of the great things that are ahead? Because knowing that you've achieved that goal, I don't know exactly what you could be feeling in this moment. For some people, it might be a high energy state, happiness, excitement, joy. While for others, it can be a sense of deep and restful calm, unshakable certainty, peacefulness. And it could be something completely different for you that's pleasant. Because as you're feeling this, what are you believing about yourself? What is possible for you And what are you believing about the world around you? What is possible for your existence and those around you? What are the things that must be true and can be experienced? And what is significant or most important to you about being this person, about having accomplished that goal? Because as you embody that, who are you being as a person? How are you being as a person? And even beyond that, what's everything else about this that you hadn't considered yet? You can think about now that can contribute to being even more of you fully. And where might this lead you next? What is the next smallest step in your future? What's the big leap? Because you could look back at 2016 self and notice that they've already changed. They're stepping in your direction, coming closer and closer. In fact, you may even be able to see what their next smallest step is to becoming this and something even more. Because no matter what you think you are in all ways more than that. Because for now, you can step outside of the future self. So you can see future self and 2016 self. And just have a sense of the space in between both. Allow your consciousness to fill that space, to feel that connection. The pooling of two versions of you coming closer and closer to becoming one. But they're not one yet, because you can go ahead and step into present day self and see future self over there, because you do have steps to take. And the only thing you need to do is to take the next smallest step to becoming that future you. And then the next smallest step after that. And for now, you might want to thank that future you for sharing this journey. Because the scene can fade as that future you is firmly planted in your future, on your timeline. And you can open your eyes and come fully and completely back to the outside world at your own rate and speed. Welcome back. Thank you so much for sharing this journey with me and sharing that experience. Just to recap one more time, this is the Future Self DTI. Just to recap, this is the Future Self DTI. You place an irresistible attractor in your client's future, and it's done in very easy steps. You first have them build up the positive image, the mental representation. You have them step out of the current self, in this case 2016 self, see current self, see future self, step in the future self, take on the physiology, elicit the map of the world, their thoughts, their feelings, their rules in the most positive way, their values, their archetypes, their wisdom, and finally where this might lead. Have them look back at 2016 or present self whenever you happen to be watching this. And notice how that version of them has already changed and is taking steps to becoming this. Then step out of future self, and step into the space in between, feeling the connection between future self and present self. And then stepping into present self, noticing future self again, and noticing the next smallest step. And maybe the next smallest step after that. And then you'll future pace them taking those steps. Now, you might be wondering, okay, so why don't we just have them stay in future self and feel awesome? The reason we don't do that is they haven't accomplished the goal yet. They haven't necessarily achieved the change yet. However, this is going to help them do it. So there's still actions that they need to take in the outside world to be this way. So ecologically, we want to make sure that they're in a position to take action moving forward. Another question that students often ask is, do they need to actually speak back? And the answer is no. Can they? Absolutely. It depends on how deep of a trance they're in. Some clients will answer you back when you ask the questions when they're in the future self, when you're eliciting their tree of life. They'll answer you when you say, what are your thoughts? How are you thinking? If they do, that's fantastic, because they're going to give you a tremendous number of hot words. These are verbal anchors for really positive states, and you can keep using those verbal anchors over and over and over again throughout your sessions with them. Other times, they're so deeply in trance that it's a little bit difficult to speak, in which case you get to use your sensory acuity and calibrate where they're at in the process. We're looking for nice, robust, positive states. As Richard Bandler says, if it's hard to see the state, then the state is too small. We want them to be in a really powerful state. This doesn't mean a big uptime like rah, although some might be. This is more looking at the congruence of their physiology. Are they like this? Or are they grounded? Are they symmetrical? What is their breathing pattern? You're going to be calibrating for different changes in physiology as you go through this process. Things like coloration of the skin will give you a lot of information about where they're at in the process. So they don't have to answer out loud. If they do, it's great. If not, no problem. As long as they're in a great state, you're in just the right place. So this is the Future Self DTI. If you would like to see it written down and like some more information about it, at the bottom of this page, I'm going to go ahead and put a link. If you click on that and put in your email address, we're going to go ahead and give you access to the chapter of the Future Self DTI from our book, Deep Trance Identification, Unconscious Modeling and Mastery, by myself, Sean Carson, and John Overdurf. So go ahead and fill in your details, and we'll get that to you right away. So if you'd like to have it forever and be able to read through it, it's a great resource. But for now, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon, either on one of these videos, at a live training, or at a live conference. Bye now.